you this?
You'll tell us nothing, Frenchman. Come on, take me. Come on.
So we're here to discuss Robin of Sherwood, Season 1, Episode 6, The King's Fall. And this one stars John Rhys-Davies as King Richard. The story is that our outlaws are in the forest and they happen across a knight who is being attacked by a rival group of outlaws, and they save his life and kind of ultimately try to extort him for money, but ultimately are kind of quite civil to him and feed him and things like this. And as it turns out, this guy is actually King Richard, who was actually hunting our wolf's heads. And because they did save his life, he sort of pardons them and invites them to Nottingham. And there he wants to effectively recruit them into going into Normandy to fight for him. But things don't happen quite as people expect. What will happen? You'll have to watch the episode and find out. So let's discuss the finale of Season 1. Now there will be spoilers here, but this is a 1984 series, so if you haven't seen it already, then I'm sorry. Now I really like the first 2/3 of this episode. I think anything basically up until John Rhys-Davies leaves the episode is fantastic. I think the initial interactions with him in the forest, where they don't know he's King Richard and they're just kind of bullying him, and this especially Will Scarlet. There's actually a great exchange bit here between him and Will Scarlet that I really feel that Ray Winston sells, like the psychopathic nature of Will Scarlet and he's kind of like how he flies off the handle. So I really enjoyed that, and the kind of the wrestling match between John and you know, King Richard in disguise. All great stuff. And then the second kind of part of the episode is where they go to Nottingham, and it's comedy gold, where Guy of Gisborne thinks that he's captured Robin Hood and his men, although they have entered Nottingham just willingly because King Richard has asked for them, and Guy of Gisborne kind of triumphantly displays him in front of King Richard and absolutely gets a severe dressing down and totally humiliated in front of everyone. As again, it's an absolutely fantastic scene. And I think the you know, the characterization of King Richard here, I think is really good, because he's kind of portrayed to be initially a very sort of altruistic but pragmatic kind of man who inspires people to kiss the ring, so to speak, including Robin Hood and his men, with the exception of Will Scarlet. And you can kind of see why. But the kind of, as the episode progresses, you see the political machinations here and what's going to be best overall, at least from the nobles' kind of point of view, and how Robin Hood, although he can be considered an asset, he might be more trouble than he's worth, and how the sort of the attitudes might change. And I thought that's all done really, really well. And I like the, you know, Robin Hood is completely bewildered and starstruck by King Richard and can't see the problems, even though his men can, and ultimately start kind of leaving him. And you know, it's so well acted, so well done, so dramatic. And as I say, I think it's a very layered portrayal of King Richard, even though, you know, he doesn't have tons of screen time here. I think John Rhys-Davies makes him for a complex individual who, on one hand, you know, is a better ruler than, say, King John, who would obviously come next. But ultimately, he has his problems and is kind of slave to the coin, as many of these kind of nobles are. So I thought it was great. And there's a scene here where the wolf's heads are eating at the table of King Richard, where the Sheriff of Nottingham is kind of like going crazy. And there's a scene where they're all getting drunk, and I swear they legitimately look like they are drunk. It's if not, that is some great acting of being drunk. But I swear they look like they're actually drunk in that scene, you know. Where does this movie have some issues for me is the later third. Now, this is where, you know, you see King Richard kind of change his mind and ultimately get the Sheriff of Nottingham to get Guy of Gisborne to kill them. But he has to do it on the down low because he wants the kind of the legend of Robin Hood and the fact that he's pardoned them to kind of live on to the people. And this is where I feel maybe the episode starts to kind of falter a little bit. We have a sequence where the remaining rebels, so Robin, Much, Tuck and Rarian, are sleeping in the barn. All the rest have gone at this point. And then Guy of Gisborne sneaks up with a few Norman soldiers, and well, this is where it goes wrong for me, because he's been ordered to kill them, but instead of just killing them in their sleep, he sort of wakes them up and wants to kind of march them down the stairs to hang them. And it's just like, it's such an obvious, like, you know, way that, okay, now Robin, he's given the opportunity to escape and kind of fight back, whilst I think, you know, if you were any type of smarts, you had the upper hand, you know, you would just kind of kill them in their sleep. There'll be no noise because they're all asleep. It would have been the perfect opportunity, but they don't do that because they need Robin to fight back. And it's just, to me, it's kind of like, it's not particularly great writing. Now, that might be heresy. I know, obviously, you know, Richard Carpenter's very well regarded. I totally understand that, but to me, it was just like, maybe it's of its time. It's just not that kind of complicated. And then we have both Guy of Gisborne and Marion both get shot by crossbows in the back. However, because they're main characters, they're wearing plot armour, and this is just a minor inconvenience for them both. Whilst it had been any other Norman soldiers, they would be dead. And again, it's just the sort of like the somewhat kind of basic sort of plot development that you might have here, whereas I think the first 2/3 of this episode were very smartly written, but it's just kind of, maybe it's because they were running out of time and they just needed to wrap it up, I don't know. But for whatever reason, I have to say, I think the plotting of that last act of this episode is on the weaker side. And then we have, you know, Marion kind of getting healed by Herne the Hunter and stuff, and she's totally fine afterwards and doesn't even seem to have any type of wounds whatsoever. Again, you know, I know there's magic and stuff in this series, but, you know, it would have behooved them to, I think, maybe still make her somewhat sore, or at least, you know, on the road to recovery rather than completely healed. Now, interestingly, the audiobooks that have come out more recently actually expand upon what happened in this episode and actually give some details about what happened after this, but I'm not really sure if they're canon, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. Overall, though, it's a good season finale. I think the scenes with John Rhys-Davies as King Richard are very strong, but I don't think it's the strongest episode entirely, if I'm honest. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to you next time. Bye for now.